Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the NXT and We Interview Series. We hope all of you enjoyed that interview that we just put out with Just Incredible. We saw some very positive feedback online, so we're hoping to follow that up with another slam dunk, home run, grand slam, game-winning goal, whatever adjective you want to use, WrestleMania moment. That's what we're looking to do on this next interview. And we got a big guest for you, someone that we've been trying to get on this show for the better part of the last 16 months. Everyone is busy, pandemic, all that stuff aside. You may know him from WWE's The Bump. I'm here to tell you that this man checks all the boxes. Charismatic, check. Well-spoken, check. Hardworking, check. And most importantly, handsome as a devil.
Oh, come on now.
It's Ryan Pappolla. How are you, my friend?
Hello, boys.
I'm sure you can already tell. We are so excited to have you on.
I'm happy to be here. Hello, friends. Yeah. How are we? Hello.
We're doing
exciting
well.
For all of us. Good. I'm happy to be here. This will be fun.
Absolutely. PJ, how are you?
That was Brett. I talked to you about it on the way up here as I was driving up here, and I don't like to do this and give you compliments and whatever, but you nailed that.
Thank you.
You should be proud.
It's one
I
of the
thought it was great.
Oh,
that was great. I only got Fiverr. Yeah, we said all the right things, but it was cool.
It's one of the benefits of having a delivery job. I just get to drive around and think all day long. So I came up with it on the road yesterday, and then when I got home, I just actually wrote it all out. So yeah, we're good. We're doing good. But yeah, the man of the hour, Ryan. Man, we are just, as I already said, we're excited to have you here, and let's start by just we've known you for the better part of the last 10 years.
I'd say, probably 7-8 years, probably.
At least, yeah.
No,
it's got to be almost 10, right?
You know, I keep forgetting it's 202021. We've probably known each other a decade. Yeah. That's the year we're in.
That's the facts right there.
Yeah. I frequently forget it's 2021 as well, because 2020 is such just put that year aside, and that one doesn't count.
Time's a social construct to begin with, but
true.
It's probably a decade. It's probably a decade. Wow.
So we know your story, but not all the listeners and the viewers know it. So why don't we start with the chalk question to get our feet wet here?
Good.
How did you first get into wrestling? What is your first wrestling related memory?
Mm-hmm.
Favorite wrestler growing up? Tell us a little bit about your background, before the Bump.
I'm sure I dabbled in scene wrestling from the age of birth to 7, right? I'm sure I was aware of it and watched it sparingly here and there, but it was not my major focus until I remember it very vividly that it was right around fall of 97. At that point, WWE's coming on, WCW is a juggernaut, and the Monday Night War is in full effect. And my mom, I think, noticed that a lot of my friends were getting into wrestling. She didn't want me to be out of the mix. And so she bought me a Sting action figure. I remember I was outside of my barber's. I think it was like a gift for cooperating for a haircut, which I hopefully will cooperate for one again soon. But I remember that. And then I think that was oh, this guy looks like a comic book character. Looks like someone I would see on Power Rangers. And so from there, I was watching Nitro and watching WWE, and it just captured my imagination. And by Starrcade 97 and by everything with WWE the next month with Austin and Tyson, I was hooked. And I'm sure my parents thought that it would be a several-year fad because, a lot of my friends, they eventually would drift in and out of wrestling. I never drifted out of it. It was other than Power Rangers, it was my first love, and here we are 23 some odd years later. That was the start.
Beautiful. Can I ask you one follow? What kind of Sting action figure was it? Because I had 2 of them. I had the NWO. It was regular Sting, but then I had the Wolfpack Sting one. It was like this big rubber action figure. You can bend the arms and legs all sorts of ways. And
if you guys will remember, in that era, it was before they weren't the most articulate. WWE definitely had much more articulation in their toys back then. It was you would be able to hit a button on the side of Sting or Nash, whoever it was, like a little red button, and like they would shake. And that was the Sting toy that I had. I keep in mind, but by months later, I probably had hundreds of wrestling action figures, but that was the first one. That was the domino.
Did you try to game the system from there on out? Be like, hey, can I get a haircut every week? I'll cooperate. We'll just fill the toy chest.
It definitely became like the report card. Congrats.
Right.
I also just think it's like I wasn't a child of like my parents. Like I was perceived by them as over hyper. I don't know if that was accurate or not. I think I was properly hyper, but I think to appease me because I wasn't like involved in sports or anything until a few years later. I guess by then they thought, okay, adequate hyper levels at 10 as opposed to 7. So my parents were very generous that and also back then action figures were of reasonable price. They still are, but like inflation and all that. So it's like, all right, we'll buy you a $7 action figure at Toys R Us down the street.
Jack
like,
specific or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. So it was like, and that was a big part of it for me. It's like, it was everything. It was obviously what I was seeing on screen, but then, I was engulfed by those worlds that I was seeing, during the Monday Night Wars, but I would be able to create my own with the figures. And so it was just like wrestling it just hit every aspect of my imagination. And I think that's a big, big reason why it's, how everything's shaken out for me today.
I have to ask, did you have a figure fed?
Oh yeah. I mean, definitely. Yeah. I mean, I played with toys till I was 13, 14 years old.
Me and Brooke can say the same thing.
Yeah. And it's like, and now it's amazing because figures now. I mean, I literally during WrestleMania weekend did a show where we unboxed, classic WWE merch, it's called Unboxmania. And the lion's share of that was figures. It's like, it's a very cool full circle thing that again, I would, especially when in middle school, I was doing the thing like, hey, do you still play with toys? But now it's like, toys, let's open them on YouTube. Like, and it's like, so yeah, but like that, when I was always into, again, it was just like wrestling hit every single pillar of, my imagination. I didn't know at 7 or 8 or 9 that I wanted to be a storyteller of some kind, or that my passion was storytelling and absorbing that type of content. But the reason why this stuff connected with me the way it did is because that was my passion, and wrestling on that level is perfect. It's everything you could want, especially at that age.
No, that's you guys were talking about the Sting thing. I had one of those like boom buddies.
Mm-hmm.
I forgot what they're called. Yeah. And I remember it was like one Christmas or something, and I woke up in the middle of the night, and this Sting big old boom buddy was staring at me, and I freaked out. But then I was able to then grab it and give it an elbow drop or something, or switch the music. That was awesome.
Better than a Furby, which you could have punted across the street.
Another popular Christmas gift. Yeah.
Probably got it the same year, I imagine.
Yeah, you could punt a Furby across the street, and then somehow it ends up in your closet the next day. Those things, those things are creepy. Yeah, creepy, man.
Looking at you.
So we go from your love of wrestling, and then obviously, I mean, here you are. You grew up a little bit, and for lack of a better term, and you find yourself looking for what your purpose, and I don't know if I want to go that far with purpose in life, but like you go looking for something to fulfill your creative needs.
Sure.
I know you are a musician, a singer songwriter / yeah. All right.
It's very. I don't look at myself that way, but it's very kind of you to say that. And
yes.
I appreciate
that's
it.
right.
Yes.
And the Christmas spoken word, the spoken words. Let's just talk about that.
Sure.
Like, where did that start before we get into like the bump and all that? Like, I'm very interested to like know where that creativity that started in you for that kind of the lyricism and then also to perform it?
Yeah, I appreciate you asking. I appreciate the kind words. I'll always be self-deprecating, but thank you.
No,
It
you're
was
welcome.
I
You're
that was
welcome all the
yeah,
time.
the first time I ever did that, I think it was my senior year of high school, and I think it was like a some type of creative writing class, and it was a teacher who really believed in me throughout my entire high school journey, and it was just like the assignment was spoken word poetry, and so I just wrote something. It was like 3 minutes long, and it was. I would look at it now and say, well, I would do X, Y differently. I would have a totally different rhyme scheme, and I would do these metaphors totally, in a different way. But I wrote it and I performed it, and the performance was a pretty transformative experience because, and you guys will relate to this. It was like I had it on paper. I hadn't memorized it yet. I didn't like that wasn't part of the deal. But I realized halfway through I did memorize it, and so I almost it's like I'm not even looking at the paper halfway through. And what it felt like. Yeah, at this point, I've been watching wrestling for over a decade. I'm at 17, 18 at this point. It felt like I was cutting a promo, and it was like, it's like, these are my words. And I had done some, performances here and there throughout the course of my, scholastic career, but being Tiny Tim in A Christmas Carol isn't exactly the same as something like this. You know what I mean? And so it's like, I got a pretty big pop when it was over, and it was just it was like very, very cool. And it was like, again, like I wasn't hitting on why I loved wrestling as a 7-year-old about why the real deeper meaning as to why I would continue to love it throughout the rest of my life. But it was for stuff like this, taking the people on a journey and like creating something and knowing that people are connecting with it is just the coolest thing. So from there, I kind of kept dabbling with it. I wrote another and another, and I would really just perform them in class. If there would be a public speaking assignment, I would do it there, and an occasional open mic night. And then in my early 20s, I started to dabble with rap a little bit. I've done a few projects, nothing crazy, nothing I really promote at this point in my life. I'm it's a good creative outlet, and I do it when I can. I came out with my third Christmas rap project last winter, which is just an astounding sentence to say aloud. But I'm like, they didn't think one could be done, and I've multiplied that by 300, But so it's been a cool creative outlet. And again, there are some interesting parallels to why I love wrestling and to how that stuff kind of works out. So anything that just gets my creative juices flowing is always what's going to get me the most hype and excited. It just so happens that more often than not, whether that thing is literally wrestling or not, ultimately I can tie it back to that 7-year-old kid who just fell in love with this for, again, reasons he couldn't explain then, but now can kind of make more sense of.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. So that was high school. And then after high school, you move on, you go to college. And then what initially made you apply to WWE? Because you started as an intern, correct?
Yes, 2014 for WWE.com.
Was it just like, you know what? I've always loved wrestling. I'm just gonna try it. Just see what happens. Follow this road. See where it goes.
Yeah, it's so by the time I hit 11, 12, 15, and everyone was like, I don't think he's gonna get out of watching wrestling. I think people would be like, well, my mom often would be like, and at this point, at 15-year-old punk Ryan, he's like, I know the business. I'm like, my mom would be like, well, just apply at WWE. I'm like, Mom, that doesn't make any sense. That's not how it works. Go read a book, Mom. So it's like, but like people
you're out
would
of
be
touch,
like,
Ma.
Well, and the thing is one of the craziest parts. I'll answer your question in a second, and I do think about this sometimes, not too often. I'm such a you guys know, I'm such a go person. I very rarely think about how everything happened the way that it's happened. But I, fell in love with wrestling as a 7-year-old, and I happened to live 20 minutes from WWE headquarters. I would have loved wrestling as a 7-year-old, whether I lived in Connecticut, North Dakota, Illinois. It just so happened, and I had no knowledge of that as a 7-year-old. It just so happened that I lived in the wrestling capital of the world. I had no idea about that till years later. It's like, and so would I be doing what I'm doing right now if I lived somewhere else? I'd like to think so, but it wouldn't have been as simplistic. like, you know, and not to say that it was easy, but to answer your question, to parlay into the answer, yeah, I went to community college for 4 years, and then I parlayed into Western Connecticut State University in Danbury, kind of near your guys' stomping grounds. And so I was there for 3 years. So at this point, my senior year technically at WestCon, I'm 24-ish, you know, and this would be junior year, quote unquote. So I'm 23 or so, and I needed an internship. I was a creative writing major. And I knew that the following year, my third year, would be my last year in college, as long as I did, you know, X, Y, and Z throughout the last 2 semesters. And an internship was not required, but would go a long way in making sure that I graduated the following spring. Right. So I had one professor, Dr. Casey Rudkin, who was amazing. And like, you know, I don't know if I had written a paper. Even at that point in my life, I wasn't like in the hallways of WestCon being like, I like wrestling, you know.
Yeah.
It's like, but like clearly it must have come up through like some assignment that I did, or like, you know, I probably wrote about it in some form or fashion. And she was the one who suggested, is like, why not apply for an internship there? And it's, you know, my life is a series of odd events, because like, even then, like when I was in high school, like I took the SATs twice, but I had no thought that I should take them. And then I had no thought of where I would go to college. It's why I ended up at community college, which ended up being the best thing for me, quite frankly. Right. But like, you know, I'm very flattered when people say, I appreciate you saying charismatic and articulate and all that, but I think often I'm just a moron. I was like, you know, it's like, I didn't think about that until she suggested it. And maybe also, like, you know, at this point in my life, in my early 20s, I've watched so many hours and hours of interviews of like, this is how you break in, and this is this person's struggle, that I was like, well, it seems again, it's like, well, Mom, that's not how it works. It seems too overly simplistic just for me to do that. So, yeah. So what happened is, and this part I often forget to tell people. And again, this is just like a weird thing, how it all shook out the way it shook out. I applied for a WWE magazine internship first. I did not hear back. And I just kind of said, all right, I tried, that's that. Because again, in my head, I'm like, how many people are applying for these internships? And I would assume a lot, right? Like, you know, and so I did not hear back at all. Go ahead, Pete, you got something to say?
No, I was just going to say, what year was this again?
I mean, this is, I'm probably applying for these in the winter of 2013. And
when did WWE Magazine is not a thing anymore?
So Peach, so that you hit the punchline. WWE Magazine was not around by the next summer, basically.
There you go.
Like people who applied for those internships.
Feel bad.
Yeah, no, I mean, no, yeah, and I know people who worked on the magazine. People who applied for those internships in the winter of 2013 did follow through in the summer of 2014, but the magazine definitely did not make it much past the summer of 2014. So I'm just I said, well, this is kind of what I expected. Like, what are the odds of me even hearing back, much less getting an interview, much less getting the gig? But Dr. Casey, to her credit, and my parents were like, well, there's this other thing. And when I heard .com, I was like, well, I don't know HTML. Like, you know, I was like, I don't understand anything about anything. Like, you know, it's like, I'm a writer, and probably not a good one. Like, you know, it's like, so, but the job description was, at least I was like, okay, I might not be a perfect fit for this, but I think I'm hitting some of these bullet points. They got back to me. They said, please come in for an interview, hilariously enough. And if nothing else had ever happened after this, especially at that time in my life, this would have been an awesome story that I would have like been thrilled with for the rest of time. I interviewed in Titan Towers, WWE headquarters, the Friday before WrestleMania 30. And like that alone, it's just like, I'm in this building, which I had never been in before, even though I lived so close my whole life. It's like, I'm in this building 2 days before, you know, the grandest stage of them all, the biggest WrestleMania at that time of all time. I was like, if nothing else, just walking through the lobby, seeing the Andre the Giant statue, like I did it. Like, you know, I was like, what a cool story. And so I interview went well. I think a subsequent interview or two after that. And then, that's spring of 2014. And I was in the office as a WWE.com intern by June 2014. So that was the start.
And how long did you intern for?
It was a summer internship. So June to August. I think my last day was right before SummerSlam 2014, that amazing Brock Cena match where Brock just suplex city and
Yeah.
suplex town and suplex state and suplex country John Cena for a good 20 minutes. Like, you know,
Yeah.
But so I was about 2 months, and then I had my senior year, my quote unquote senior year, because I was at that point, my college journey was all askew because of the 4 years at community college, etc. So I did it for about 2.5 months, and I mean, I just made I worked really hard. Like, you know, it's like, I'm not one to pat myself on the back, but like, you know, I very much looked at it as like, you know, I'm going to go in there. I'm going to try to ingratiate myself as best as possible. Like, I'm going to do whatever they ask me to do. And it was cool because like literally my first day there, I didn't expect this at all. I wrote results for SmackDown. Like, I had my name on a byline for SmackDown results. And it's like, I didn't expect that. And so it was really cool stuff like that. And then, like, you know, it was also stuff like, we have this interview with, you know, Rob Van Dam. Can you transcribe it? Absolutely. Basically, my tact was say absolutely to everything, try to absorb as much as possible. At that point, I did not expect to ever, you know, be back there, at least not as soon as I was, which I'm sure we'll get to in a second. But it was just like, everything here is so invaluable. And like, yeah, obviously, this is on the very, very short list of places that I'd want to work down the road. Because again, even then, even after getting my foot literally in the door, I was like, the odds of me getting back here like are infinitesimal, you know. It's like, so it was about 2.5 months, and then I went back to school, and so that was the start.
And yeah, so I mean, yeah, you already know where the follow up is coming. So yeah, no, it's fine. So you go back to school. Internship goes well in your mind, and
I thought so.
And clearly, I'm guessing WWE thought that it went pretty well. So did you end up applying for a position with .com? I'm correct me. Yeah, you end up applying for a position with .com after the internship is over, and you get the job.
Yeah, it was around February of 2015. .com had a position open up. It was going to be a 3 days a week in the office, and they were looking for a weekend person to cover .com, basically the entire site over the weekend. And very, very nicely, they did not offer me the job, but they offered me, they were like, hey, we have this position. We would like you to apply for it, which was amazing. Like, and again, like, even if I didn't get it, that would have been like, okay, I made a good impression. This is now something I can actively work towards. The way it worked out, though, was pretty wild. I was interviewing all throughout the rest of my last semester at Western Connecticut, and basically the way it lined up is, you know, a bunch of interviews, phone interviews, in-person interviews, and I graduated. Let's say I'm making up the dates, but let's say I graduated May 15th. I began working at WWE May 25th. It was like I graduated college and I started at WWE no more than 2 weeks later. So I probably got the gig right before graduation, and I started working there literally no more than, like I said, a couple weeks after I graduated. And then
it's a quick turnaround.
And so that's the thing. And I just, like, you know, I'm always very, very grateful. And like, you know, again, I definitely wanted to make sure I worked hard, but I always try to bear in mind that and this isn't to pat myself on the back. It's actually the opposite. I know that's a very uncommon thing. And this is the only job I've ever had. I'm now doing something different than when I originally did. But like, you know, I'm very, very thankful and grateful it worked out that way, because there's a lot of people far more talented than me who do not get a job that quickly out of college. And so it's like, yes, I, you know, put my foot to the pedal, but I also get that the stars aligned in a very great way for me to be able to get in that way. And so just for a little exposition out of that, and feel free to obviously follow up with anything, but for the first couple of years, you know, it was from that summer 2015 until spring 2018, you know, I sat at a desk and I was a writer. You know, I wrote results. I worked that weekend shift for even after the bump started, for, like, you know, actually right before the bump started. I was, you know, every weekend. There would be times where I'd be hanging out with you guys on a weekend and I would have to bounce because, like, you know, something would happen. Like, you know, if like we had an overseas show, like, you know, England, Japan, wherever, like, you know, different hours, different times. So it's like, at one point, our buddy Jim, I interviewed Lana after her wedding in my car from our buddy Jim's driveway on a Saturday night. That's a true, like, so it's like, that was a big part of it. And then, yeah, I'd be in the office and I'd cover SmackDown, I'd cover pay-per-views. I got very lucky that they trusted me. I was able to interview a lot of talent over the years. Everybody from, I interviewed Sting, who was obviously the action figure. That was a cool thing. I told him that story. I interviewed Michael Jacobs, the creator of Boy Meets World, about the Vader episodes. Like, you know, I interviewed Cesaro. I interviewed Seth Rollins. Like, you know, I interviewed Seth Rollins. I appreciated that they trusted me, but I interviewed Seth Rollins after he hurt his knee, literally like the day after he hurt his knee back during his title run. And it's like, and I was pretty new still at that point. I was only about a year in. So the fact that they trusted me with that, not even a year in actually, now that I think about it. So I wore a lot of different hats, as did everyone on the editorial team and .com. Like, you know, it's really, you know, it's my whole department, which includes social, video, editorial. It's like, you don't hear those people's names, but they work incredibly hard. And it's like, you know, it's late hours, and it's like, you know, it's a lot of dedication to what we do. And so that was the second level of the start. And again, I never expected anything that we're probably about to talk about in a few minutes. None of that was ever on the table or anything that I really thought about. It's another series of how did this happen events. But
right.
You know, that's what I did from summer 2015 until spring, fall 2018. I was exclusively a guy who wrote articles very happily and, you know, maintained the site and created content for WWE.com.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought it up because, you know, you're our friend, which is why we wanted to have you on.
You're my friends too.
Yeah.
No,
obviously we're like 1 second away from jumping into the meat and potatoes here, talking about the bump. But yeah, I'm glad that you said it. Interviewing you is also a way to shed some light on everything that people behind the scenes, you know, the non-wrestlers, everything that you guys do to help make WWE as big as it is, as polished as it is, what it's grown into, what it's become. Yeah, just trying to shed some light for all the hardworking people, you know, running the socials, running the website, making sure that all the fans can get the information and the interviews and all that stuff. So without further ado, yeah, shout out all those people. Obviously I don't know all the names, but we love you too.
From the roof.
Yeah, shout it from the rooftops.
Let's go.
But let's get into it. So intern, WWE.com position, and then the bump. How does all of this sort of come together?
As in the spring of the one thing I do take inventory of every now and again, like when I'm walking into the studio I will answer, this is a roundabout way to answer the question. I really don't, again, I'm very go, but when I'm walking into the studio on a pay-per-view night or during WrestleMania a couple weeks ago, like, you know, like when we did 7 live shows in 5 days, and I was a part of even more shows during WrestleMania week than that, but 7 live shows. The one thing I do stop every now and again, and I maybe even literally did it on the way in here just now to do this, I was like, I say this to myself every now and again. I have no idea how any of this happened.
Yeah.
And it's like, because like literally, here's the story. Like the first part of it is just literally this. Right around 2016, 2017, we had a series called WWE Now, hosted by the great Kathy Kelly, and I had become in a rotation of people who helped write that show. Like, you know, you know, here's what happened this week. And like, you know, I would work with Kathy and like, you know, it wasn't my primary responsibility, but as time went on, go ahead.
I'm sorry.
No,
so
you're
like
good.
kind of you would do like a rundown or run sheet or something like
that.
Yeah,
I would help put it together. I would write, I would script it. Like, you know, I would work with, it was collaborative, obviously, but like, you know, I would help script it. And as from 2016 on, that definitely became one of my primary responsibilities as time went on, definitely by 2017, early 2018. But that's not a segue to like, well, this happened. I mean, that's something I'm doing. And there's a Kathy element, which I'll come back to, but I like, you know, and I think it was May of 2018, one of my supervisors said, "Hey, are you free?" I was like in the office. He said, "Can we have a call at 4:30 or so?" I said, "Sure." This sounds horrifyingly bad, but yes, we can. And like I was like, "Well, 3 years I had a good run." You know.
Thank you for your. We wish you well in your future endeavors.
So I don't know what's coming. Again, there's other than what I just said, which is not a segue to this. Like I don't necessarily. That's the only thing that I was even doing, even close to the realm even close to the realm of the realm of the realm of what I do now. My supervisor, his name's also Ryan, he said, do you have any interest in being on camera? We'd like you to audition. And I was like, sure. Like, you know, it's like it was as out of the blue as it could be from my perspective, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
And I think what had happened is a series of conversations that I was not involved in with people far higher up on the food chain than I am, saying like, you know, Kathy at that point was doing almost everything for the WWE Now brand. And like, you know, just a tirelessly working ethic person. Like, you know, Kathy's the best. And I credit her for a lot of everything that I do and know now. But, you know, Kathy was definitely starting to do X, Y, and Z over here, had more to do. So they needed someone to, you know, essentially fill in. Like, you know, like Kathy couldn't be everywhere at once. And I think there was just a series of conversations of like, it wasn't as simplistic as or as rudimentary as, all right, we're going to get someone from the office to do this. But they were like, that's an option. Let's have Ryan try this. And so I went across the street. I filmed an audition about a week or so later. My beard was even worse than it is now. I had no time to get I had like 2 days notice. I had no time to get a haircut.
You look wonderful.
Thank you. It's very kind of you. It's alive, but it's mine.
No, look at mine.
Like,
get out of here.
So, but again, other than, and I'm glad you guys brought it up because like, other than that spoken word and rap stuff that I had done, which included live performance and included some music videos and like, you know, I was in front of a camera with that stuff a little bit, not a ton, you know, at that point I had been doing that stuff for close to a decade. Right. So it's like, I was comfortable enough, but I wasn't doing that stuff every week. You know, it was like, I had a level of familiarity with it and I thought I had progressed with that, but
you had some reps, you didn't have enough.
Yeah, and it's not nearly the same. Yeah, and it's not nearly the same. It's totally different than being Ryan Pappolla here for WWE Now. Here's the news of the week. It's a totally different skill set. Like, you know, but like I had been in front of a camera some. But I filmed the audition, and that's late May, I'd say 2018, and then it was also uncharted ground for everybody. So it was, you know, there was just figuring out the process and like, you know, again, they were figuring out what's the next steps of this. This is very, very new terrain for everyone, me, them. It was like, you know, it's not really a common thing. I would say it's an uncommon thing for someone to go from sitting at a desk doing what I was doing to even being in the discussion to start doing this stuff. But one thing led to another. And by November 2018, I had done, there was a SmackDown anniversary. So I did like a rap spoken word video. That was the first thing I did on camera for WWE, which I often forget about. So that is kind of a cool tie-in. And then a few weeks later, I started doing WWE Now here and there. I'd say like, if there was, and I'm making this number up, if there was
WWE Now.
Yeah. And if there's 12 WWE Nows a month, I was doing 4 or 5 of them on some months, maybe some months 3, maybe some months 6. It was like all dependent on Kathy's availability. And that's how it started. Again, that's how it started, part 3.
Here we go. We're in the saga. We are currently in the saga of Ryan Pappolla, and at Bodie is Ryan, and you're listening to the NXT and We Interview Series here, where you can find us anywhere you get your podcasts, NXT and We. I mean that's just it's remarkable, and we're not even. This is part 3, so we still have part 4.
Yeah,
Brett.
Yeah. So the bump is the next step. I can dive in on that.
I was gonna say Brett. I think Brett has the saga ready to go.
Yeah, I mean, more or less, I think the masterpiece is coming together here.
Yeah, so, we are getting it. And we didn't even. Well, I prepped you a little bit, but we still, and for the people who have been listening to us for forever, we always get to the fun questions. We have the same question for every interview at the end of every interview.
Yes,
but this is, you know, we're gonna get there.
We're
working our way there, and we're clearly laying the groundwork for this saga of an interview. And Brett, I had to interject, but I throw it back to you, Brett. Maybe unwillingly, but willingly at the same time. it's on you.
Very willingly. So
yeah, I mean, yeah.
So the
Pass
audition
torch,
goes,
man.
yeah, the audition goes well. Clearly, you're doing WWE now.
Yes.
And how long after that? I'm sure there must have been discussions about the bump leading up to obviously its debut episode.
Yeah.
So how much prep did you actually have like leading up to it?
I think the
When
bump,
did you know it was going to happen?
Yeah.
So there's I'll circle back to a cool full circle thing with Kathy in a minute off this question.
Let's do it. Oh yeah. Shout out Kathy Kelly, by the way.
Yeah, shout out Kathy Kelly.
She's literally the best. It's late 2018 when I start doing now, like I said, and that's progressing into early 2019. And I start doing a few other things. I did Kathy and I did like a WrestleMania 35 preview at the YouTube space, which was really cool. I started doing some watch alongs. And around this time, spring 2019, there's talk of like, hey, we might be doing a morning show. And so it's like, great. I should note that I'm still doing my desk job throughout all this. I'm splitting time between WWE now when needed. I'm still my full-time day-to-day is still writing SmackDown results and interviewing talent or anything of that sort. So, and I'm still working weekends as well. So it was a lot going on. But I was just happy for these opportunities as they were coming through. So we filmed a pilot for a morning show long before the bump started. I was happy to be involved in that, but there was it was just kind of just, feeling everything out and seeing what worked and what didn't. And then it was kind of like wait and see, because Brett, to your point, these things obviously take some time to develop. Yeah. By summer 2019, it was definitely becoming a little more fleshed out. They started bringing in a lot of the people you see on the show now. The great Evan Mack, Matt Camp, Mackenzie Mitchell, and obviously, Captain Kayla Braxton, who's also great. She's already in the fold. She's not at WWE Digital, but those pieces start to come together. And yeah, by the bump debuted early October 2019. So by late summer, early fall, we're beginning to, it has a name, we have a cast, and we're ironing all those things out. And then we started, and even when the bump started, I was still splitting time between the desk job and that. So it was obviously I was veering more towards on air, but I was still doing a little bit of everything. But that's how the bump started. And the cool thing, about the Kathy element to it is that in early 2017, I'd say, maybe a little sooner, maybe a little later, she and I were just in the cafeteria at headquarters, and we were talking about now or whatever, and she said, I pitched this idea for a morning show, and I asked them if you could be my co-host. And at that point I was like, well, that's very generous of you. I have no future in on camera, Kathy. I write results for the website, but thank you. So I always I don't know, to wrap it all around, I don't know what those conversations with my bosses were like how my name came up or why, and those were much later than that story I just told. But I always tell Kathy that, who knows, maybe her, just out of the kindness of her heart and her believing in me long before I could have ever thought to believe in myself, seeing something in me potentially for a role like that, maybe that planted a seed in their minds that over a year later, they were like, hey, let's give Ryan a chance, just see how he does. And again, I'm not sure how any of this happened, but I guess that's literally how it happened. And then we're off to the races with the bump since October 2019.
Awesome.
There you
go. So you're on the bump now. So let's get into some questions about the show. All right. Do you have a particular favorite moment that has ever happened on the bump?
And
Go ahead, I wanted to preface this question specifically by you've written an incredible piece of literature about the comparisons between Baker Mayfield and The Miz.
Yes, thank you.
You've made the Undertaker chuckle on air.
I did. I don't think that happened.
And you have discussed football with Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Yes.
So, thus, after building it up like that, Brett, what was your question again?
Favorite moment, was it?
Favorite moment.
Yeah. I will be remiss to say before anything else, The Bump, Wednesdays at 10 a.m. on Peacock in the US, WWE Network everywhere else, and all of WWE's digital platforms such as Twitter, Facebook, Instagram Live. And so the show is a ton of fun. If anyone who's listening to this, probably almost an hour in, and you haven't seen the show, it's a lot of fun. It's definitely a very unique show. We have so much fun. The slogan is because it's fun, and that definitely holds true. We have superstar guests every week. We often have celebrity guests. We recap the week of WWE, I think, in a really just kind of dynamic way, and we'd love for you to tune in if you haven't watched before. As for favorite moments, yeah, there's a ton. PJ, you hit on a couple. When I was at the desk, when I was just a writer, if you had asked me what's my dream interview, I would have said The Undertaker, because it's absolutely impossible. The Undertaker doesn't do press.
Right.
It's like, and then I think that was like, it's just that. That would be my dream get. Very few people in the history of civilization have interviewed The Undertaker. Literally, at that point when I'm saying that, it's a handful of people in the entire globe who have done it. And then in May 2020, I interviewed The Undertaker on The Bump. And then in November 2020, I interviewed The Undertaker on The Bump. So I interviewed him twice in a 6-month span. That's really, really cool, especially coming from thinking that I would never, the dream would just be to get to, and by when I'm saying that years ago, it's like, it would just be on a recorder and I would be transcribing it in print. Now I'm interviewing him on WWE television. It's just a really, really cool thing. There's a bunch though, man. The Stone Cold one you bring up, Peach, was really cool because my mom, her favorite celebrity is legitimately Stone Cold. Now, my mom likes wrestling. She'll watch wrestling, but she's not like a wrestling diehard by any stretch of the imagination. She likes Stone Cold because she enjoyed him on Nash Bridges. She's a big fan of The Condemned. She thinks he's funny, and so it's like, my mom would always say, Ryan, if Stone Cold comes on The Bump, you got to bring him over for lasagna. I'm like, well, Mom, the second part of that's impossible. Not going to happen. But I'll work you in as best I can. And so I was able to I was able to tell Stone Cold that my mom's a big fan. And actually, fun little tidbit, that was in February earlier this year. My mom's birthday was April 24th, just a couple days ago. And I held on those Stone Cold clips until her birthday. I'm talking to Stone, and and granted, easy birthday present for me, didn't cost me a dime. To give her, but she was elated. I have video of her watching it, and she thought it was the coolest thing in the world. So that's up there. We had an episode early on, and I won't list 1,000 things, but there's a ton. My fandom and support of Sasha Banks has kind of taken on a life of its own on the show.
Oh yeah, well, I had a question about that. You can just get it. Yeah.
No, but feel free to ask in a moment. But the first time she came on the show, it was actually right before the pandemic hit. She was actually one of the very last in studio guests we had before we obviously had to change things up. So that was a big deal. But what was doubly cool was, and we didn't know it was going to happen, that's right after Goldberg had won the Universal title. So it was Sasha, who was, I've become, my fandom had become kind of a thing that had taken on a life of its own, like I said. And then Goldberg, who I'd been actively just rooting for like a madman in the weeks leading up. So it was like, at the end, they were like, the producers were like, that was a pretty Ryan Pappolla heavy episode, huh? And it had nothing to do with me, but it was just like, here are these people that I'm just like waving the flags for months and months on this show. So there's a ton of things. And honestly, the other thing is just working with Kayla, Matt, and Evan every week are great. We've really bonded as a cast. They're amazing. And especially now as things slowly get back to normal, getting to be in person with a couple of them, Matt and Evan. Kayla still in Florida, obviously taking care of SmackDown and her 1,000 other shows that she crushes. So it's so getting to do it with those guys and the team behind the scenes on The Bump are amazing. They're literally some of my best friends. And so I could go on and on about, I love the show. I think it's everything I wanted The Bump to be. It has become and exceeded my expectations. It's you guys know, I love Regis Philbin. I love Al. I like morning television. Wrestling isn't my only interest. It's my primary one. But so it's this perfect combination of just everything. I want wrestling to be fun. I want WWE to be fun. So that I'm on a show that has fun every week. It's cool that I'm on that show because, again, no clue how it happened. But the fact that it is all the things that it is, and I get to do it with so many amazing people is just the coolest.
I mean, go ahead, Brett.
Do you have a particular favorite guest that's ever appeared, whether they're a recurring guest or one time?
Yeah, I mean, so it's definitely, again, it would be all the names you expect. The Undertaker's actually now been on a total of 4 times, which is amazing.
Yeah. Okay.
And Goldberg's been on several times. We actually, on another show I'm a part of, Watch Along, where we watch WWE pay-per-views as they're happening. It was during the rain delay at WrestleMania. We had Goldberg on for the Drew McIntyre Bobby Lashley match, which you figure in theory would take 20, 30 minutes, but there was a rain delay. So we ended up talking to Goldberg for about 70 minutes on Watch Along. And it's just like, it's our buddy Bill by the end of it, we talked a bunch before. So that's really cool. Yeah. Go ahead, Pete.
And after everything you said, to be able to then say my buddy Bill is like just knowing you as long as we have. I mean, Goldberg and Sasha. Well, and before we move forward, I just want to, I know, we got a little bit of time left, but obviously Goldberg, one of your favorites.
I love the guy.
That's documented. Lesnar, also
that guy
one of your
too.
favorites, who you WrestleMania weekend had the social media post of you, and I hopefully we'll be able to throw it on here of you doing the Lesnar jump onto what. First, I have 2 things, the 2 points that I brought this up for. First of all, where was that and how did that come about? That specific post of you doing beautifully, I might add. I mean, amazing.
Thanks,
I mean, I'm coming off of quad surgery anyway. I would rip both of my quads if I tried.
Please don't try that.
No, I will not. I could do other things, but I cannot jump up to the ring apron as smooth as you did. And second of all, so it is a 2-part weird question, but explain to me where that was, how that came about, and then before Brett gets into anything else he has, your affinity for Sasha Banks. Just give us a minute on that.
Sure. I will start with the first part. During WrestleMania week, we were not in Tampa, but it was really cool. We celebrated WWE by bringing the bump to you and the watch-alongs from the WWE warehouse here in Connecticut.
Okay.
And so, and it's like, it's literally WWE history is all around you. So we had a unique set. But in the WWE warehouse, there's a couple rings. And so that was WrestleMania Saturday, I believe. It might have been WrestleMania Sunday. I think it was WrestleMania Sunday. And there was some downtime. And listen, I am not a wrestler. I'm not anything close to one. I was an okay athlete in my day. It didn't really apply to any sport, but I don't really have a good vertical leap, but I have a good hop. I have a good hop.
Okay. All right.
Listen, especially during the last year, physical activity has not been at a premium for anyone, me included. So I was like, this could be a dreadful idea. I might not make this. I was pretty confident I'd make it in my prime, but my prime is long ago.
Was that one take?
Yeah, one take, one and done. I wouldn't have tried it again.
What are you talking about?
I wouldn't have tried it again if it wasn't like, it was not like, let me do this for Instagram. It was like, let me see if I can do this and let's film it just in case I get it or I don't. And so, and that's how it happened. And I don't have many more years left where I can do that. So I'm glad I got it in now. Listen.
Well, now it's preserved forever on the internet.
Forever.
Yeah. I had a little more room than I thought, but there's not that much left before I'm not capable of doing such things. So thank you. Good part 2. Like I said, it's definitely become something that I'm associated with is my support for Sasha. I saw Sasha in 2012 at an indie show and thought she was great. And by 2015, just as a .com writer, I legitimately thought she was the best wrestler in the world. It was just kind of my take on things. And second episode of The Bump, I'm not even on camera. We're doing like a mock draft. The draft was like the next week. And Sasha went like in the 3rd round or something. And I was like, off camera, I'm off to the side. I said, Sasha should have gone first. She's the best wrestler in the world. I just said it without thinking about it. It was just my opinion on the matter. And that clip kind of got some traction with Sasha fans on Twitter. And then as the show went on and more things happened, it would just come up a lot. And so by the time she came on the show in March 2019, it definitely had become a thing. And now it's, very much a thing. But you guys know me. It's like, I always just want to be authentic, right? So it's like, sometimes on the show, sure, like things can get loud and very big, right? And very, just, pretty electric. But like at its core, I'm always honest with the audience. I think Sasha Banks is the best wrestler in the world, so I talk about it. And a cool thing that happened is that I was able to write while on the bump the article comparing her to Michael Jordan. I have an affinity for comparing athletes to superstars, same thing with Miz and Baker, and so that kind of contributed to it. And so from that first just sly comment, straight comment that I didn't even think twice about or didn't think anything of, and then the article, those two things combined, I think kind of manifested everything that's happening now.
She's since recognized that too, and you guys seem to be pretty chummy.
I mean, she's been on the show 4 or 5 times, and it's like, it's definitely, I can get a little carried away. She came on WrestleMania Saturday before the Bianca match, and I possibly was calling Sasha the EST of WWE by the end of the episode. Possibly when Sasha exited the interview, I was doing a standing ovation in the WWE warehouse. It's like, so it's definitely a thing, and it's fun, and it's definitely something that I'm associated with now, and we have fun with it.
And Bianca ended up proving that she is the EST of NXT.
An amazing match.
An
amazing match, historic for so many reasons, important for so many reasons. So, I love Bianca. We've also been fortunate to talk to her a bunch. Huge fan. So that's the Sasha. And all of that in a nutshell.
I was gonna say you had to at least give some props to Bianca there. So,
she's amazing. I'll never say a bad word about her. She's amazing. All our superstars. Yeah.
I guess before we get to the fun stuff, Brett, was there anything else we wanted to touch on? You're listening to NXT and We, our interview series here with WWE The Bump's Ryan Pappolla. There he is as he waves, and he, you could check them out just anywhere you get any kind of content. WWE The Bump, and they bring you they're talking WWE wrestling. And if you're listening to this, you will 100% want to go on and check out, especially at Bodie is Ryan, because he is just the man.
Follow
But
at WWE
other
The
than
Bump.
that,
Don't worry about
I was gonna say, go to the bump first and follow the bump, and then you can go on to Bodie is Ryan,
and then follow all of the amazing cast members, including our good friend Ryan Pappolla.
Them before me, quite frankly. But
I have one last question about the bump.
Can't do that anymore.
Okay, Brett, please go ahead.
I have one last question about the bump, and I think it'll serve as a good segue into the, not that there's been any heavy content, but the fun stuff. Sure. Since debuting on the bump, are you now more likely to be recognized on the street, or has nothing changed?
No, I'll tell you. So keep in mind, pandemic, right? So
right. Okay.
We've really only been on the streets so much in the last 14 months. But I will tell you, I've been, when we were traveling still, when we were doing stuff on the road, right from the bump started until, there was no more road to be
October
on.
to March. Right?
March, April, obviously at WWE events, I would be very flatteringly, I would be recognized, here and there by WWE Universe members, which is awesome. And it's the show. Even then, I'd only been on camera for about a year. I'm very flattered when anybody recognizes me. But so it's I definitely am, for better or worse, recognized more on Twitter these days. But the first time preceding the bump, this is just a fun, quick story. In general, regular life, not at a WWE show, not in relation to something WWE or wrestling related. I think maybe it's happened a few times, but the one I can recall being recognized was at a movie theater. And here's the punchline. It was at a movie theater. I had literally done, though, maybe 2 episodes of WWE Now. I had been on camera for 90, probably literally on camera, 2 minutes total. Literally, so it's whoever that gentleman was, you are a grade A WWE fan because not only are you watching everything, you have the memory to remember. Like, if I had seen me for 3 minutes, I wouldn't remember me. I'd only seen this person for 3 minutes. No, that's not even a diss. It's like, it's like, so like I probably talked to an ice cream man for 3 minutes once. I wouldn't remember his face necessarily a week or 4 later, but it was, to be fair, it was only like, it was like, so that was, I still reference that all the time because it's like, literally I'd been on camera for tops 4 minutes of screen time. And this was like, hey, are you the guy from that WWE show? I'm like, I think I was like, maybe you might be
you that guy?
Likely no. Like, it's like, so, but I was. And so that's cool.
Well, like I said in the intro,
anyone says hello. Yeah.
Well, it's like I said in the intro, you check the most important box, handsome.
Right.
So who could forget that?
Stop that right now, Fred.
No.
Yeah. All right, PJ, what you got? Hit us with the fun stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I guess this has been amazing. I mean, you're now a recurring guest, so basically you're gonna have to tell your bosses that whenever we ask you to come on, that you're available. So we'll have to get that in your contract.
It's just like the bumps on from 10 to 11:30 on Wednesday mornings. It's just 10:30, like we're recording. I gotta go.
NXT We needs you right now.
NXT We needs me. I gotta go do an interview for my car. I'll be back.
I'm glad. I know it was in the fine print when we got you on, but
when you texted me.
Yeah. But I mean, I was able to incorporate some fine print in there.
If I screenshot it in Zoom, there's fine print.
Of course.
Always. So recurring guest Ryan Pappolla, of WWE The Bump fame and just in general fame because you're an overall just upstanding individual and we love you. Okay. Yeah, let's just so I did via not in fine print say to you that I wanted to get into some of your and you kind of alluded to some of it, your favorite TV. We ask a lot, most guests this, your favorite TV shows, but I want to know the answer to that question. But before you answer that question,
sure,
just in case any of these two are the answer to that question, I would like to know where the affinity for another buzzword right there, for Boy Meets World,
sure, and
you said it, Power Rangers.
Yeah.
Where does that come from? Just
Sure. No, I mean, Power Rangers is my first favorite thing. Like, it's like maybe I dug Barney as a 1 and 2 year old, but like, it's like Power Rangers as a 3-year-old was just my first, and that was the first thing that captured my imagination. Like, and that was from 3 to 8 years old, and then from 12 to present day.
Mighty Morphin. We're talking Mighty Morphin, right?
Yeah, and then but like I've just like listen, I'm a nostalgia nerd, like most of everyone else in our age bracket, and so it's like but I got back onto Power Rangers long before it was trendy in the last decade. It was just like I loved it. It was definitely, it captured my imagination. I had toys, and again, there's a lot of parallels to my love of that, my love of wrestling. It just really grabbed me in every way possible. And so there's that. And then Boy Meets World, I just think is the best sitcom that's ever been made. That is a favorite of mine as a 10-year. I mean, it's in the discussion for me. Yeah. I mean, I'll tell you this, Corey Matthews is my favorite television character of all time. And I've said that I'm the Corey Matthews of rap. I don't rap much these days, so maybe I'm the Corey Matthews of wrestling talk shows now. I'd like to think. I don't know.
There's a soundbite right there.
Yeah, I'd hope so. I don't want to give myself that title. I'm probably not allowed to, but that would be the dream. And so yeah. I mean, but just both of those things and so many others. I could give you a laundry list of just like things that I'm invested in. I don't get invested in everything, but the things I get invested into, I really get invested into. I was actually, honestly, I was just on like a 90-minute walk before I came on with you guys. And I was thinking about man, if I ever had a podcast, what I would want it to be is just right now I'm really into the Mighty Ducks show on Disney Plus, right?
Oh, hell
I was
yes.
and I love it. I think it genuinely, by the way, just as a stray recommendation for me, even it's a great show. Like, and it's not for children, it's for families and for people who love the original, and also it's just for people who enjoy television. Like, you know, really good show. But I was thinking, I was like, if I had a pod, I'd want to interview X, Y, and Z cast members from the original Ducks. I'd want to interview Natalie Portman. I would just want to interview people that I think are interesting, and ultimately it would become this hodgepodge of like, I think I would just call it people that I think are rad that I want to know more about. And I would do like you guys are doing right now with me, an uninteresting person, deep dives on their lives and stories, because it's like, if I am a fan of you, I'm a fan of you. Like right now, I've been watching a lot of the old MTV challenges, and I think Coral, who was ironically on with The Miz, and I love The Miz and Coral together, but like I think Coral from those challenges in real world is like one of the greatest reality characters of all time. Yeah. And it's like I'm like I've been watching so much of this stuff lately. It's like, man, all I want to do right now is interview Coral Smith. I know enough, I think, to interview her, and it's just like, so it's like I just when I'm into something. When it gets me just creatively, you know, thinking, or just when I think something's entertaining, I really find myself really kind of diving in, and I think it's great. I think it's just something that when I enjoy something, I enjoy it.
So, I know we're running a little long, but you said you would like to interview any of the cast of the Mighty Ducks, and maybe Natalie Portman.
Like, some people think that Natalie Portman was Julie the Cat Gaffney. She was not. If you think that, you're wrong. Like, you know, actually, maybe they think she was Connie Moreau. There's a little bit more of a resemblance there. But Natalie Portman, either way, was not in the Mighty Ducks.
What a great show, though. The Disney Plus version, too. I will recommend that as well.
It's fun. It's appointment viewing in my apartment. It's excellent.
And so you brought up something, and I don't know why, but that I figure I would be remiss before we get into like the last 2 or 3 questions.
Sure.
Again, thank you, Ryan. We love you, and we're so glad you've offered your time to us here on the NXT and We Interview Series. NXT. We didn't touch on any of NXT, so I figured we would just get this in there.
It's in the name.
Yeah, it is. It tends to be in the name as we do these shows. I mean, just I guess my what I wanted to say is just thoughts ? But I would say thoughts ? And then and some of your favorites, Sasha being the main one, have clearly come from this elk. And just thoughts on the current product and maybe your favorites going right now. Really quick, you know. Obviously, I know we're pushing.
Sure, no, the short answer. I talk about it every week on the Bump. I love NXT. You know, it's like it definitely is like kind of a perfect combination of everything that I loved about wrestling as a kid, everything I loved in my teens, and everything I loved as an adult. I loved as an adult.
That's why we cover it each and every week.
Yeah, it hits all those sweet spots. And I mean, obviously, you know, the 4 horsewomen all came through NXT. It really, I mean, look at WrestleMania this year. Like, you know, NXT's fingerprints are all over it. You know, and so I mean, I thought Adam Cole's interview last night, the night after night before we recorded, was great. I thought last night's episode was great. I love MSK. I love MSK. I've gotten a chance to chat with them a few times. Great guys, and probably the best tag team in the world right now. I'll probably take away the probably. I think they're the best tag team in the world right now.
Let's go!
Wow.
Let's go!
Spicy take. I love it.
And I mean, the proof is in the pudding. I mean, when you have several match of the year contenders, and we're not even halfway through the year, I think you have to take notice of that.
Dusty Cup winners in their first try.
I think, you know, I'm a big. I could give you a laundry list of people. I'm a fan of Tony Storm. I'm a fan of Raquel Gonzalez. You know, it's like, you know, I'm a fan of Kyle O'Reilly. I'm a fan, like, you know, it's like there's this. I'm a big NXT supporter. I love, you know, as a part of the Bump that we get now, especially we you know, when NXT was on Wednesday nights, we'd be previewing into the Bump. Now we get to talk about what happened on NXT every week, which is even cooler. So, because it's on the night before the Bump. I mean, we could do a whole hour on NXT, but the short answer is I love it.
Since you're a guest, that we'll do that the next time.
Yeah,
because I'm a recurring guest. Yeah.
Real quick, we have been calling since his breakout against Finn Balor, the first time Kyle O'Reilly faced Finn Balor on NXT, and we have dubbed him the Canadian Dragon.
Ooh, yeah.
Thoughts about the nickname? You like the nickname?
I like anything with
Think
the
it
dragon
fits?
in it. Like,
Yeah, exactly.
I like
Cool.
American dragons. I like
Cool.
Canadian dragons. I like double dragon. I like all of it. Like,
Awesome.
like, and so yeah. I mean, like, you know, I keep saying it if it makes you happy. I think it's
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
Canadian Dragon, Kyle O'Reilly, and NXT and We's Dragon, Ryan Pappolla.
Come on now.
The,
Right
yeah,
actors and special talk shows, if anything.
What do you want me to do?
We've been chasing this dragon for 16 months.
yeah,
now. We
yeah,
finally got it. So,
just you know, we'll get to it really quickly. We touched on TV shows. Favorite movie of all time?
Favorite movie of all time is tougher. I mean, like, you know,
You can give us a couple.
I mean, the answer is like, I don't know. It's like, how do I put this? Although, what am I worried about?
What movie
My favorite
would you
movie,
watch?
My
forever?
favorite movie is the Power Rangers movie '95. From an art perspective, that's not a good answer.
Wait,
but like so I want to say real quick, my hesitation was like internally just then when I hesitated, it was like, I don't want to say I don't want to insult the Power Rangers movie from '95. But then it's like, the Power Rangers '95 movie isn't going to be upset because I called it unartful. Like, you know,
News?
like, yeah, I mean, like, you know, it's my favorite film.
Is
like,
that Ivan News?
Like, yeah, Ivan News. Yeah, you know, there's
Where they come in
Rangers.
with the Red Hot Chili Peppers song at the beginning of the parachute?
Yeah, you know,
That's one of the greatest movies of all time.
Thank you, Paige. I concur. So, I mean, my answer from a non television, non already existing. Well, that's even muddy waters.
Okay,
but the answer is taking away stuff that, like, because I'm a big Veronica Mars fan, so I love the Veronica Mars movie. But like, you know, take those away, take those out of the equation. In the ballpark would be Creed, Greatest Showman. You know, it's like, you know, those would be in the running. Peach, I think of all the time, actually noting my hat. Like, you and I both cried like babies at 42. We cry at most movies. You and I cry all the time when I watch cinema. You know, it's like
I cried on my way here.
I hope that's not true. I hope it was a happy cry. Papolla's on the show today. Just let me get the tears out now. This is going to be a disappointing hour, but you know, so it's like, yeah, I really, sometimes I do think about this. I really have to like sit and think about what my favorite flick of all time is. But my most beloved flick is Mighty Morphin Power Rangers movie '95. And then I guess if the first two that come to mind are Creed and Greatest Showman, they're definitely in the discussion, you know? So that's the long and long of it. That's long story long.
So we kind of touched on it, and we just have to ask because we're a wrestling podcast. NXT We shout out interview series. Favorite wrestler and then favorite match of all time. So I know you kind of touched on the favorite wrestler, so maybe that'll be quicker than
I mean, you know,
favorite match in. I'm gonna group it in live or on tape.
Okay,
both. Yeah.
So separately or just all things included, give you one?
All things included, give us one. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. I mean, you know, if you've watched The Bump, if you listen to this, you know, hour-long podcast, Sasha Banks is my favorite wrestler. Like, you know, just so that we have it on the record, you know, just to be, like, you know, in case someone's like went on Spotify and they're only listening, you know, like they missed the first hour, so they fast forward to this point. We just, you know, favorite, like, you know, favorite match ever. The three that instantly spring to mind are Sasha and Bayley in Brooklyn, Undertaker and Shawn from WrestleMania 25, and Brett and Austin from WrestleMania 13. It's tough. Favorite match, guys, is so tough. You know?
I know.
It's like, so I will cop out and I will just leave it at those three. And I could list so many more. Like, you know, it's like, but like, you know, when people ask me that question, those are the first three I go to instantly.
It's such a good question to ask people in wrestling, especially wrestlers, because you gave the same answer pretty much every wrestler we've ever had on says it's a tough question to answer, and then they give us like two or three.
Yeah.
So,
and there's so many. I mean, like, you know, it's like I could give you, like, you know, I love the Final Four match from In Your House '90. Like, you know what I mean? There's some. But I will tell you, to your point though, and it's cool to be on the other end of this with you asking me that, because my favorite thing anytime I'm because I'm lucky enough that not just on The Bump I get to interview talent a lot, and it's amazing. And my favorite thing to talk about superstars with is the in-ring stuff, like is the match, like especially when you can do a deep dive, like, you know, all right, here's this match, let's tell the story of how we got from A to Z, how did this come together, what, like, you know, that I love every aspect of my job, but like if I had to get to like the very, very minutia specific of what I love doing, it's being able, I got to talk to Shawn Michaels and Undertaker about that WrestleMania 25 match,
Oh.
like, you know, and not just like, what'd you think of it? Like, you know, it's like to get to the beats of like where their heads were at. And like, you know, it's like, so stuff like that is amazing. And like, you know, it's a great question for that reason. And like, ultimately, you know, we love every aspect of the wrestling business, right? But like, you know, you watch it because ultimately you love watching those guys and gals do what they do in the ring. And like, you know, a great match gives me, I think, more of a rush than like almost anything in all of sports and entertainment. Like, you know, when you just Sasha Bianca, you know, the triple threat from Mania Sunday are great examples. It's just like when you see a great match, man, what a feeling. So great question.
So I have one last question before the very final question.
Very last one.
Okay, so two more. Penultimate question here.
Two last.
This is the penultimate question.
Is it?
There you go.
Is it? And this is going to touch on NXT, you as a person.
Wow.
Not and not even wrestling related.
This is layered.
Everybody's taking
touching
deep
on
breaths.
3 different. Yes.
I'm hydrating before this.
Yeah, I have to do. Yeah.
Is it safe to assume that if the Cleveland Browns make the Super Bowl, you and Johnny Gargano will be sharing a suite?
I have thought about this, not that specifically, but I've thought about if even the so I am as maniacal a Cleveland Browns fan as you'll ever meet. I've never been to the city of Cleveland. It doesn't make sense. That's for,
I've never been
a reoccurring podcast appearance.
I've never been to St. Louis, and and you know this. I'm the biggest St. Louis Cardinals fan.
This man has a Cardinals tattoo. I do not have a Browns tattoo yet. Pete, you're out of frame.
There it is.
So, like, you know, I've thought about what I will pitch if the Browns ever make even just the AFC Championship game, which we were very close to just a few months ago. That's okay. Don't curse, Peach. I will pitch like, hey, Johnny, Miz, Dolph, I'll try to weasel my way in there. Let's go to First Energy Stadium and let's just cover what happens. Like, you know, Vic Joseph is a big Browns fan. Like, you know, there's a Browns contingency in WWE. Every time Johnny, whether it's watch along, the bump, something else, I close out the interview with Go Browns and we'll end up talking about Baker for at least 45 seconds of that specific interview. So yeah, the draft's tomorrow. And I told my roommate, when we finally nabbed down a time to do this, I was like, I would have said yes no matter what, but I was like, oh, good, they asked me on Wednesday because the draft was. I did it on Thursday. I would have like, guys, we got to do this at like 5 p.m., maybe 5 a.m. Like the draft. Right. The Browns are drafting as late as they ever have in my existence, so it's like
it's kind of cool, right?
Yeah, I know it's very cool. So to answer your question, Brett, yes.
Yeah, awesome. That's what I wanted to hear.
The answer is. Yes.
That's what I wanted to hear.
Hopefully,
and then we'll get some of the fiery live tweets from you, but there'll be live tweets about the Browns at the AFC Championship or Super Bowl.
I will say, if you do follow me on Twitter, it's literally about 97% WWE related content. And unless it's September through December, then it's about 75% WWE related content and 25% Browns related, but 100% Browns related on Sundays unless it's a pay-per-view.
Right. And 73% of that 75% is Sasha and Bailey content.
Well, Bailey is she's not a huge fan of mine. That's another story for another time.
That's fair. Or at least it was.
But I'm trying to make amends. I'm trying to make amends.
By the next time you're on, maybe hopefully things are better.
Yeah, it's like, you know, it's a gradual process. You know, I get a little carried away sometimes. I'm putting the blame on me.
You're an upstanding individual there, Mr. Ryan Pappolla of the WWE's The Bump. Again, make sure you go follow, check them out. WWE's The Bump. I mean, that's all you have to do. You can find them. They're
come
talking.
On in.
Come on in. Just like you are here. You'll find them at all the links. Everything will be in the description, and you've heard it already. The last question we ask, Mr. Bodie.
Yes.
Are you ready? I mean, you seem nervous. Okay.
I mean, it feels like it's what a journey we've been on.
Well, well, yes. This has been amazing. First of all, and we appreciate you. We love you. This is a big question. I mean, I don't know if I can. I don't know if I can build it up any.
You've never been
any
asked
more.
something on this
you
level
tell me we're low
before.
on time, so
Yeah.
I'm ready whenever.
No, I mean, I just want to make sure you're ready. So,
I'm ready.
would you? It's a fight question.
Okay. All right.
Would you rather fight
Mhm.
one duck size?
Okay.
Wait, horse-sized
there it is.
duck. One horse-sized duck,
Okay.
or 100 duck-sized horses.
I
Take
think
your time.
one. No, I think it's the one horse-sized duck, because 100 duck-sized horses still
Yes.
have their they can still there's just so much a horse is like a weapon,
Yeah.
like, whereas a duck, if you can evade the beak,
Well.
I don't care how big it could be, like, it's like if you can evade the central area of that duck's mouth, what's it gonna do? Feather you into submission? I mean, I mean, you just have to, I'm an Anderson Silva fan. You just have to keep distance, keep your hands up, unlike Anderson, and keep them at range and distance. So
It's a big old duck.
yeah, I mean, I can hop to the ring as much as I want, but if you put 100 horses in front of me, I can only hop so far. So I will go the giant-sized duck.
Duck.
Okay.
Yes.
And
the horse-sized duck.
what do you think your chances are against that?
Still not good.
Okay.
Not good. I again past my prime. And so not good. I'd lose.
Well, we
I'll
appreciate
never
the
know
effort.
to end the pod on, but yeah, I would. I would.
That's
My
on you.
shoulders would be down for 3 against the horse-sized duck.
You could
I'd be
just
looking
say
up at
that.
the lights against the horse-sized duck.
Yes, you lost against this giant duck. Which, I mean, hey, better men have fallen to giant
But you
ducks.
know what? I'll get the duck in the rematch at Backlash.
That's right.
It's like
There you go.
WrestleMania Backlash. Yes, coming up.
Yeah.
There you go.
So yeah, that's what I think I'd lose. I think I'd take the L.
Well, we had to knock you down a peg.
Yeah, you said too many nice things about me over the course of this hour.
Build you up just to knock you right down.
And then tell you that you are contractually obligated to come back on our podcast.
I'm going to be screenshotting and zooming in
Yes.
on all these texts. And by the way, you're not even an iPhone guy, so they're the green bubbles. It's a lot of work.
Brett, send him a couple texts.
Oh yeah, I'll get a little blue.
Yeah.
Get a little blue in there.
I don't even know when you're typing. It's a nightmare.
No, I just come and I go like an assassin. It's amazing. All right, well, Brett, if you're good, and if Ryan is good, which I imagine he is, because we kept him longer than we.
I'm happy. This was, guys, for me, this was a blast, and I'm just happy to talk to you guys. You're two of my favorite people, I appreciate you thinking that anybody would have interest in my tale. I obviously don't look at it that way, but I appreciate it, and I love you guys, and this was a blast. So I appreciate you having me, for real.
Love you too, and
we love you so much.
Feel free to take
again,
the last couple seconds here to
plug everything.
Plug everything.
Yeah. Again, The Bump is Wednesday mornings, 10 a.m. On Peacock in the U.S., WWE Network everywhere else, and on all of WWE's social platforms. That's Twitter, Facebook, Instagram Live, across the board. Follow us at WWE The Bump. I also have my hands, and our crew has our hands in a lot of other things. We have a show called The Ultimate Show, where we did Ultimate WrestleMania, we do Ultimate NXT. It's kind of like we fantasy book our ultimate versions of these great shows. There's the show on Peacock and WWE Network, Icons. Matt Camp and I host a show called Icons Revisited, where we will, if it's about Beth Phoenix, we interviewed Rhea Ripley and Molly Holly about not just the documentary, but about Beth Phoenix's influence on their career, and we've done that with several people. I did a show, like I said, called Unboxing Mania during WrestleMania week, where we went through a journey of WWE stuff, and watch along every pay-per-view. I'm fortunate enough to be part of a lot of really cool things on WWE Digital. It's ever growing, and there's so many people past the people you see on screen who are great and make it what it is. And it's just a lot of people who really care about the content we're putting out in the world and love wrestling and want to talk about it in cool and unique ways. So yeah, please check out The Bump. But if you're strolling through Peacock, or if you're out of the country, out of the US, and you're on WWE Network, look through the other stuff we've done. I think you'll enjoy it. We definitely enjoy making it. And I appreciate everyone who watches. And yeah, at WWE Bump. And if you want to hear me, if you want to read my thoughts, at Bodie is Ryan. Again, it's about 97% WWE. So follow at WWE The Bump. Check us out Wednesday mornings, and appreciate y'all, all of you guys, and everybody listening, everybody who watches. Thank you.
100%. All right.
Thank you so much. And on our end, this has been another edition of the NXT and We Interview Series. You can find us on any audio platform: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, and you can also find us on YouTube as well, iHeartRadio. Yeah, and you can find us on YouTube for the visual platform as well. You can find us on Twitter at NXT_podcast, and individually at Bets PJ and at Pineapple Brett. So thank you guys.
One last thing. You guys are crushing it, and I'm really proud of you. Keep going. Keep going.
Thank you. Thank you.
Seriously,
man.
Yeah.
Really appreciate that. And yeah, so we hope you guys enjoyed. Please let us know, and please come back, listen to us again. So
recurring guest.
Recurring guest. Yeah.
Check these text messages, man. All
recurring guest, but most importantly, our friend forever. So thank you guys.
Love you guys. Appreciate you.
Peace.
What you guys all have come here for, what you expect, and that's NXT Talk, the best NXT Talk you will find on any platform.